Give me a sec here, I'll get him up and get going.
All right,
Okay.
start at the beginning.
Oh, Jesus, you getting picky, man.
Please forgive me, I am not well schooled in the modern technologies. Okay. All right. And I will muddle through this, I'm sure. So, in 1977, the fall of 1977, Phillip Baldwin fell out of the sky. He landed on his feet in Carbondale, Illinois, to attend graduate school at Southern Illinois University. He was absolutely the unbridled energy of a 16-year-old madly in love with fire. When he didn't have a hammer in his hand, he was usually clutching a jar of instant coffee crystals, which he consumed by the spoonful. It wasn't long before he was deemed the Energizer Bunny of that graduate program. And then he was encouraged by our professor, Brent Kinkin, who, by the way, was not only my professor and Philip's professor, but Mary Lee Hu's professor as well. Brent is a legend, and Phil certainly lived up to it. While he was there, Brent encouraged him to go ahead and explore Mokumegani, which had been started and looked at some by the earlier grad students in that. But Philip went ahead and began his work in Mokume. His earlier work, which was in patterned steels, mostly those that were using either Japanese or Viking traditions in there, but they all had pattern. Now, all of a sudden there's Mokume. What do you do? Well, we didn't really know, and Philip didn't really know a lot of how to. The only information we have is what the Pijanowskis had given us, which was the traditional Japanese methods, and you would stone and you would flatten and you'd spend days preparing your metal. It didn't take long for Philip to team up with Marvin Jensen, a fellow grad there, and they basically almost immediately discarded 350 years of Japanese tradition. And Philip, who had a background in chemistry, and Marvin, who had the pragmatism of an Iowa farm boy, figured out how to make Mokume. And it was those two that really the birth of modern Mokume began. The birth announcement was really the SNAG conference of 1979 in Boston, in which they presented their findings in paper. It was at that time we could say Mokume became completely demystified. It no longer had a shroud of mysticism. It became open source. Philip early on recognized the importance of Mokume in terms of the jewelry field, and he went ahead and individually developed a whole series of alloys that were compatible to this. He turned around and then added those later on to the offerings in his then fledgling company, Shining Waves Metal, in 1989. And what that did was start the whole series of the Baldwin bracelet. It was offered in iconic patterns and in colors that nobody else could even conceive of, but Philip went and pursued. It was phenomenal. Now, Philip also turned around and ramped up production using new tools and bigger rolls and everything. He was able to increase production to the point where he could produce massive sheets of Mokume. And he had alloys he had developed specifically for exterior work. And with that, he produced a line of what I consider the ultimate jewelry for buildings. Those are massive pieces. None had been done before. And he was able to use that in many architectural settings. In addition to that, he was able to supply John Marshall with some materials in which John produced this iconic series of Mokume vessels. John could not have done this without Philip's model. And according to John, this allowed him to play a supporting role as well as center stage in the production of a piece. John Marshall understood the structure and the patterns that could be developed from the Baldwin metals. We can take, Philip's search for pattern a long ways. He was always looking for patterns in life and things to do with his metals. And he had developed a real fondness for things domestic, cooking, gardening, being at home. And it was only natural that he would become the tool maker for those endeavors too, both garden and the kitchen. And this resulted in a series of slicers, servers, and spoons that were just incredibly beautiful, perfect to hold, and ended up award-winning and much treasured and loved by many. Maybe it's a natural aging process. Maybe it was Phil's sort of morphing interest in things other than edged weapons that culinary became important to him. And it means culinary, not a weapon. So he produced a whole series of culinary pieces, all of them in this iconic Baldwin pattern of beautiful to behold, exquisite to use, and deeply functional. He produced these, actually, they become the embodiment of his artist statement, which said he produced things which were appropriate to both object and content. He wanted to produce what he called living work, and that's what these are. Now, Philip also had, not only was he married to producing things that were both appropriate to the object and the content, but I would suggest that Philip was also sensitive to place. The people of Snohomish were part of the tribe in which he lived up there. Not many people know that Phil Baldwin played an important part in making sure that their water was clean, good, and safe to drink. He also did more than his share to help make the environment in the city of Snohomish better for all, there too. Appropriate to object and place. Now, I don't know what I did, Andy. Come fix it, please. I got it, I think. No, I don't.
Let me get it.
We'll take a short intermission. Now the technician comes over and rescues me.
We hope.
There you go.
Well, not quite, but we're almost there. Pay no attention to the man behind the Wally.
Okay, so the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain, is left, and we can continue now. Actually, Philip's attention to appropriateness for both object and content also shared over into space. And this was really true in his architectural and public art pieces there. All of them were sensitive to place. He wouldn't just design something and plop it down there. He had a reason for doing things the way he did them. That was the pattern from Phillip Baldwin. These pieces, in various parts of here in Washington, are just absolutely magnificent, lovely, and they are really living work. Now, it's been said before that a person's life is often represented by the dash between the start and the end dates. Certainly for one Philip Baldwin, that's not the case. It was a million dashes strung together, and we all know that a dash on a piece of paper represents a route, a trail, a path, a road. And for Phillips, that road wandered all around the world, from the Himalaya to the Andes, to the fjords in Scandinavia, to the inland passages in Canada. He was there and he was gone. But if we can see any kind of pattern in this, we sense, the kind of man that Philip was. And a lot of you are going to remember Philip Baldwin primarily as Mr. Mokube, which he was. Some may remember him as Mr. Muscle, which he was. Some of you will know him as Dr. Dagger, which he was. And for some of us, we will remember him as Philip Baldwin, and he left a piece of his soul with us. So what did we get? We left Philip admonishes to, number one, work your ass off. Stay busy. Make a living work. Number two, fall in love. Go for a walk. Number three, take your time and ponder everything and enjoy it. And number four, chuckle a lot. Enjoy it. And so I thank you, Phillip Baldwin, for giving us the things that you have. And I thank you for your patience.
Well, that was beautiful. Thank you.